Warning, this is going to be a spoilerific review, so if you haven't seen the movie, please keep watching anyway. Okay, it's been 3 days since I saw Captain Marvel. I deliberately took this time to forget about the movie, and over the past few days I've been avoiding everything about Captain Marvel over the internet. And oh boy, it wasn't easy. This movie is both loved and hated by so many people that it generates so much curiosity that I wonder how much of it influenced everyone's decision to go see the film. The numbers coming in right now seems to point that this movie is going to be a huge blockbuster. And why can't you all motherfuckers do this for a little battle angel? Still bitter. Anyway, the main reason I'm delaying writing a review of this film is that because I have this nagging feeling that I like the movie because of the subject matter instead of the merit of the movie itself. So bear that in mind that I'm writing this from the point of view of someone who's been waiting for a major Hollywood movie about a female superhero for a long time. A long time. To finally got what I've always wanted in the form of Captain Marvel. Perhaps the most interesting thing about the film is that the filmmakers chose to imbue Captain Marvel with no character development. The whole plot point is basically playing on the amnesiac hero trope where the protagonists wake up not remembering who they are and have been given a quote-unquote a new name because, spoilers. And here the movie begins. Captain Marvel suffers from retrograde amnesia, the inability to remember things before a brain trauma. She'd been given a new identity and a new name by the villains. I love the plot twist of her name Veers that came from the latter half of Carol Danvers' dog tag that John Rogg found after she blew up the Lightspeed engine. And from then on, the rest of the movie involves her figuring out what had happened in the past and in turn finding out who she was. Which turned out to be the same person as she is, personality-wise, but with proton blaster hands. She didn't follow the classic monomyth hero's journey where the hero come out the other end a different person, no. She remained who she was as we found her at the beginning of the movie, Absolved. A basic filmmaking 101 class would point out a non-existent character arc, that is, a protagonist who didn't undergo a change of character by the end of the film, as bad writing. I find this teaching/train of thought to be rather rudimentary, since you're pigeonholing your students into one way of thinking. But of course, there are other ways to structure your film for the protagonist. One way is to allow for the protagonist to not undergo change, but instead changes everything she touches. This is the way Captain Marvel filmmakers chose to do it. This is basically the same character arc for Jesus and Superman. And given Captain Marvel's status in the MCU as the strongest superhero by far, it's a fitting choice. That being said, this movie does have a lot of expository dialogue for some reason, and in a lot of these dialogue scenes, it appears the directional intent was for the characters to build a relationship with Carol. For instance, there is dialogue with Carol in the car, in the bar, and while washing dishes. While all these scenes give a lot of information that the audience needs to know to understand the plot points, I just don't feel like that these characters are connecting it at the level of personal relationship. The only scene where a character feels like they're connecting is when Maria Rambeau talks about her dead best friend. Again, an exposition scene. But for some reason, the emotional Maria seems to have been met with a brick wall Carol in terms of emotional relationship. Even when Talos was once again reunited with his family aboard the Klingon starship, the reunion felt more informal and not very emotional. And again, someone gave an expositionary explanation of what's happening on board, in front of him, in real time. By the number of times this sort of unemotional, emotional scenes keeps occurring, I don't think I can blame Brie Larson for seemingly act unconnected with the other characters, but instead, this is something that goes down on either the writer or the director. The sheer number of expositionary dialogue is atrocious. Even the Talos reunion scene is an exposition scene describing the intention of the Skrull instead of an emotional scene that it should have been. I would like to dig further on this issue, but I'm short on time right now, so let's move on instead. But before we do that, shout out to Lashana Lynch for delivering an amazing, perhaps the only emotional scene in the whole movie as Maria Rambeau. Moving on. A lot of scenes on this film exist to serve the MCU instead of the film itself. Even the ending scene with Fury was to inform the audience on the origin of the Fury eye patch and where the name Avenger in the Avenger initiative came from. We even see young Agent Coulson, among other things. Even the MacGuffin in the film is the goddamn Tesseract. Just to tie up on the question of how Fury managed to get the Tesseract in the first place after we saw the Captain lost the damn thing in the first place.
I'm not what you think I am.
While it was fun to see the Tesseract, in the end, its existence didn't have any consequence to the film. Sure, it's fun to know why Fury always keeps the truth on how he lost its eye a mystery, and finally we found out how Fury got the space pager he used at the end of Infinity War, but it sure as hell feels like that there's so many of these Easter eggs, quote-unquote, that the film feels like a stopgap to the other film, Infinity War Endgame. Even the mid-credits scene is presumably a scene from the upcoming Avengers Endgame. While it ties Captain Marvel to the MCU well, and sets it up so that the Captain is actually an important foundation for the Avengers initiative, does it not feel like they're retconning things? I'll let it slide for now because it's so much fun geeking out that the power source that they were looking for was the Tesseract, with nobody in the film knowing that it contained an Infinity Stone. And we won't be able to look at Fury's missing eye and his grumpiness the same way again. Stuff like this builds a universe for us fans, so it's always good to have fan service. There are other issues that has been raised by various reviewers regarding this film. For that, we go to Rotten Tomatoes. Now, unfortunately, Captain Marvel is being review bombed, so we can't use the audience score, which is too bad since I would like to know the genuine audience reaction to this film. But what's clear is that misogyny is alive and well in America. And whatever the artistic quality of this film is irrelevant. This is an entertainment film, not an art film. This is a movie that the United States needs simply because Captain Marvel stands up against such misogynistic ignorance. What we can use is the tomato meter top critic meter, which stands at 65%. But digging a little deeper, it seems mostly the critics think the movie is a fun little film with a great supporting cast, especially Gustav Flurkin, with awesome women empowerment message that fills the blanks in the MCU, or the way Rotten Tomatoes chose to put it, packed with action, humor, and visual thrills. Captain Marvel introduces the MCU's latest hero with an origin story that makes effective use of the franchise signature formula. In short, this is entertainment film, not art film. Don't take it too seriously. Have fun, and hope you gain something of value in your day-to-day life, especially you women out there. Closing thought. Women empowerment is an important issue, and having a movie like Captain Marvel that is being embraced by the general populace and irritates the few is overall a good thing. A very entertaining film that I'm looking forward to see what they're going to do next for the sequel. And finally, a Marvel origin film that did not have a mirror match as the villain. P.S. Ronan the Accuser is a chicken shit.
She's just the beginning.
You've come a long way, but you're not as strong as you think.
What is this?
The SHIELD logo.
Does announcing your identity on clothing help with the covert part of your job?
Said the space soldier who was wearing a rubber suit.
Get tickets now